begin with an update to the federal case against City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby.
New documents shedding some light on just how much money Miss Mosby makes and how she spends it.
Jeff Abel has been poring over those documents. He joins us live now with the very latest. Jeff?
Well, the case against the state's attorney is becoming crystal clear, at least according to prosecutors, who in newly filed documents accuse the state's attorney of lying and denying all the way to the bank. From the beginning, Marilyn Mosby has been defiant, vowing to beat the case, which she claims is nothing short of a witch hunt.
I am innocent of the charges that have been levied against me, and I intend to fight.
But in several new court filings, federal prosecutors spelled out their case in minute detail, using Mosby's financial records, showing her paycheck increased $10,000 the year she claimed financial hardship and withdrew $90,000 from her retirement account without penalty. Prosecutors say she then used those funds to purchase 2 Florida vacation homes. In court filings, prosecutors write, the fact that she used the funds to buy vacation homes is probative of the fact that no adverse financial consequence existed in the first place.
The government's theory remains clear that the state's attorney did not suffer adverse financial hardships that would have justified what she did with respect to her lockbox retirement funds.
Prosecutors also write in detail about the $45,000 tax lien, which Mosby denied knowing anything about when applying for new loans on those Florida homes. Prosecutors wrote that Mosby's own attorneys wrote in correspondence last year that the defendant not only knew the loan had not been paid off on January 6, 2021, her counsel enclosed a copy of the ongoing installment agreement and a statement along with it that showed only a single payment had been made. In court filings, prosecutors told the judge, the reality is that telling the truth matters. The laws are written for a reason, and the defendant was required to follow them.
I'm not really sure what Ms. Mosby's lawyers are doing. It feels like they're engaging in saber rattling, but without any real purpose. They're filing all these motions. They're losing every single one of them. They're losing credibility with respect to the judge. If they try this in front of a federal jury, I really think they're putting their client in a really perilous position.
Well, defense attorneys maintain that the administrator of Mosby's retirement account failed to properly advise her about what was required when withdrawing money early from her account. The trial is set to begin now in September. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, right now we don't have a date for sentencing in this case, but we can tell you the jury sent a very loud and clear message after deliberating for nearly 6 hours here today. They said Marilyn Mosby did indeed lie about a COVID-19 financial hardship. They say she committed perjury when she filled out and signed forms and illegally accessed $90,000 early from a restricted retirement account. This case has spanned nearly 2 weeks, 3 days for jury selection, 3 days for the evidence portion of the trial, and nearly a full day today for jury deliberations.
I'm blessed. I have nothing else to say.
Ms. Mosby, were you surprised by the verdict? That was the extent of the reaction from former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby shortly after a jury found her guilty on all counts. 2 perjury charges that the jury deliberated for about 6 hours before deciding on. Any comment on the verdict? Mr. Wider, what are the next steps? Mosby's 2 federal public defenders had no comment for reporters, and her 3rd defense attorney, Lucius Outlaw, ran away from our camera when we tried to talk to him. Was it a surprise that it was about 6 hours of deliberations? There was no questions that we know of? The verdict of victory for the federal government. This comes nearly 2 years after Mosby was charged in a 4-count indictment. Mr. Zelensky, this was a big victory. Do you have any comments? Mr. Delaney? But prosecutors declined to speak with us on their way out of court, and a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office briefly explained why.
We're not, no.
Can you give us any information about the next step, scheduling, or anything?
Conference.
Do we know when that's going to be?
No, she didn't schedule it.
also a telephone conference to learn more about the sentencing date for the convictions today, and the two charges pending that you heard mention of just now. Those are the two mortgage fraud charges. That is Marilyn Mosby's second separate federal criminal trial. The two charges, the mortgage fraud charges and the perjury charges, were originally part of a 4-count indictment from January 2020. Earlier this fall, the judge split the 4 charges into 2 different trials, moved the whole thing here to Greenbelt. Today, Mosby was convicted on the 2 perjury counts. The 2 mortgage fraud charges are up next. The government will work to prove to that jury that Mosby used the $90,000 that she illegally took out of that restricted retirement account to purchase 2 vacation homes in Florida, and that she lied on the paperwork for that purchase. Reporting live from Greenbelt tonight, I'm Kate Amara, WBAL TV 11 News.
Okay, thank you. We also called up with Governor Wes Moore just a few minutes ago. Here's what he had to say about today's verdict.
No matter where you fall on this, this is a tough day for the city, right? And I'm just praying for her kids.
From the indictment nearly 2 years ago to the verdict today, we have the full timeline of Marilyn Mosby's perjury case on the WBAL website and on the TV 11 mobile app.
It cannot be understated that time served is the big headline from this day-long hearing for supporters and for the defendant, Marilyn Mosby. We're here at federal court in Greenbelt, and late this afternoon, the defense got what it fought very hard for. The judge handed down a sentence of time served plus 3 years of supervised release, the first 12 months of it in home detention, identical sentences for both of the outcomes, both of the guilty verdicts from her 2 separate trials, the 2 perjury convictions and an identical sentence for the mortgage fraud conviction. The sentences will run concurrently. It means Marilyn Mosby will spend no time behind bars. That result had her supporters cheering and had Mosby in tears when she spoke to reporters outside the courthouse.
I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for the fight. Thank you to everyone who signed that petition. Thank you for the federal public defender team that so eloquently advocated on my behalf. Thank you. I swear God sent angels into my life to see me when I felt like I wasn't being seen. And I'm just so grateful to each and every one of you. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge those of you locally who were fighting for me from the beginning. The Sheenas, the Hakis, the Earthas, the Bills. I'm just so incredibly grateful.
We love you.
Thank you.
We love you, sister.
This is not over.
No. Right.
But God was here today, and I know He's with me.
Always.
He touched the heart of this judge and has allowed me to go home to my babies.
The government came here this morning asking for 20 months incarceration, arguing that jail time was needed to send a message and as a deterrent. No comment from prosecutors on their way out today, but we did get reaction from a pair who just might be the most vocal, energetic, and consistent Mosby critics. We're talking about Keith Davis Jr. and his wife, Kelly Davis. Kelly Davis has been telling us for some time that she's been following the case. We've been talking to her, but so far she's declined to say anything publicly, citing the fact that she is a mother as well.
She shouldn't have went to jail. She's a mother. Regardless of how I feel about her, she should not have been in jail. She's a mother, and a mother should not have ever been separated from their children. It's time for us to heal. She's been held accountable. That is enough. But does she need to be in jail? Absolutely not. We know all too well what that's like.
And what about you, Keith?
I definitely think that she should not have to do any jail time. I wouldn't send anybody to prison.
So this is far from over. Mosby's attorney told the judge she maintains her innocence. Her appeals are continuing. She's going to keep asking for a pardon. And we also know that the defense intends to fight the judge's ruling at the start of this date. That was a big win for the prosecution. They asked for the judge to order forfeiture of Mosby's Longboat Key condo, saying if she hadn't lied in order to get it, she wouldn't have been able to buy it. The judge agreed, ordered the forfeiture. The defense immediately asked for a stay, and that is litigation that continues. Reporting live from Greenbelt, I'm Kate Amara, WBAL TV 11 News.
Kate, great work at the courthouse and all throughout this case. And as you know, Kate, Mosby's ex-husband was at the courthouse, City Council President Nick Mosby, who has supported her through it all.
Kate also spoke with him to get his reaction to this sentence.
I think it's been a very long, very expensive and grueling process for my family, more importantly, my daughters. And, you know, I'm thankful for the court for keeping their mother with their children. This has been a case about her money the entire time. Still very perplexed, but thankful for where we are right now.
And was it touching that the judge said the fact that she's a mother of two young daughters really weighed heavily into her, factored into her decision?
Yeah, I think that was critically important.
Marilyn Mosby had a lot of supporters rallying outside of the courthouse today.
Yeah, for more on that, we now turn to David Collins, who's also live at the courthouse in Greenbelt. David.
Hi, good evening. Jubilation spilled out of the courthouse. Some of Marilyn Mosby's supporters had both hands in the air shouting, "No jail time." It unfolded right down there. The crowd broke into cheers and chants, "We will not be moved." And we do not. Who do we love? Marilyn. She left the courthouse with her two daughters, who also addressed supporters. Dozens of them arrived by bus and car. They were anxious all day. They held a prayer service asking for divine intervention for mercy and justice. They made an impressive showing in sheer numbers inside and outside the courthouse. They say they came to show the judge how much Marilyn means to the community. This is what some had to say.
Us watching in attendance, it was a beautiful moment, you know, just to see that, you know, all of the hard work of the community trying to get her, you know, the support that she needed.
I saw you here. I saw both of you guys here earlier today. What do you make of this?
It's tremendous. It's reflective of unity in the community. When you mobilize and organize, you can achieve great things.
No one thought she should have been prosecuted in the first place. They thanked the judge for not bowing to the pressure from the prosecution. One of many supporters told me that this is a happy day. Reporting live from Greenbelt, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
Milton Mayor Tiffany Henyard has faced multiple corruption allegations, including financial mismanagement and misuse of taxpayer funds. In response, she has consistently denied any wrongdoing, characterizing the accusations as politically motivated attacks. September 2024, Bo Brinley stated that she was under attack by a corrupt board of trustees that believes that they can subvert the will of the people. In March 2024, Henyard vetoed a resolution calling for an investigation into her conduct amid corruption accusations. During a tense meeting, residents voiced their frustrations, but Henyard maintained her stance against the investigation. In August 2024, former assistant and township trustee Carmen Carlisle accused Henyard of unethical behavior and lavish spending. Henyard dismissed these claims, referring to Carlisle as Lion Carlisle, and denying involvement in the Tiffany A. Henyard Cares Foundation, which was under scrutiny for financial irregularities. Despite ongoing federal investigations and public criticism, Henyard announced her bid for re-election in October 2024, asserting her commitment to continue serving as mayor. Throughout these controversies, Henyard has maintained her innocence, attributing the allegations to political adversaries attempting to undermine her leadership.
New at 10 tonight, renewed calls for a change at the top in South Suburban Dalton.
Of course, we are talking about Mayor Tiffany Henyard, and our Jermont Terry was there as residents lined up to give her an earful. Jermont.
Eric and Joe, tonight's regular scheduled Village Hall meeting turned into political antics where the opponents for Mayor Tiffany Henyard say they're counting the days until she is voted out, but the mayor insisting she isn't giving up or losing that seat. Monday night's Dalton Village meeting started 30 minutes late.
We are awaiting Mayor Henyard to arrive. We will give another 5 minutes.
Mayor Tiffany Henyard delayed the meeting with no explanation. It gave residents something quickly to complain about.
Just sacrifice 32 minutes to an individual that doesn't give a damn about anybody's time but hers. Okay?
Mayor Henyard listened as one by one, residents gave her an earful.
Very much so. Concerned about this culture of corruption.
They spoke about the change they want to see.
Clean House 2025, and clock is ticking. The clock is ticking.
That was the ongoing theme as people took more personal jabs at the mayor.
We cannot let her get back and to be the mayor, and we already know she's not going to win that supervisor seat. That is done.
After taking the insults, the mayor threw her own verbal punches.
The disrespect that you guys displayed at that mic is unbelievable.
While the FBI continues its probe into the village and questions still remain about the village spending, Henyard drives 1 point home.
I have the seat now, whether you like it or not. I am your mayor.
And about her losing that seat in 2025, she told the crowd,
I won my seat by 82%. Know this, I am going to come through on a landslide just like Trump did. Know that I will be victorious in the upcoming election.
We're not your damn subjects. We are your bosses. We are the citizens of Dalton. And we will not continue to treat us like this because you are on the way out.
Now, there are several people running for mayor and also for the trustee positions. So with the new year just around the corner, we can expect many more jabs as the elections draw near. Reporting live in Dalton tonight, Jermont Terry, CBS News, Chicago.
Mr. Nate Fields' name will not appear on the ballot.
Allies of Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard were successful in getting some of her challengers kicked off the April 1st general election ballot.
Based on those things alone, this document should be overruled.
Resident Michael Smith was behind many of today's objections. After a short hearing, the electoral board voted to remove Nate Fields Jr.'s name from the ballot. He was running for supervisor. Fields Jr. is vowing to appeal the decision, which was based on the board's belief that he missed key procedural steps in the filing process.
The one particular, what was it, a statement of candidacy, wasn't binded properly to the rest of the petition packet.
The meeting began this morning and took place in the township's headquarters in South Suburban South Holland. 2 other supervisor candidates were kicked off the ballot because of not having enough nominating signatures and other issues.
The total number of valid signatures.
This all comes as Henyard is working to get herself on the ballot after losing in a rare Democratic caucus vote a few weeks ago to represent the party. State Senator Napoleon Harris ended up being nominated as the Democratic challenger. Since then, Henyard filed multiple lawsuits against both the Thornton Township Democratic Party and Harris.
I'm run 17 different cities, including my own, Dalton, and people want to control it.
Tiffany Henyard is still facing FBI scrutiny for her handling of finances as township supervisor and as mayor of Dalton, but has denied any wrongdoing. Tonight, Henyard's warning of a possible Thornton Township shutdown if insurance isn't approved by the board. That's after 2 township trustees continue to boycott multiple meetings. That board meeting is scheduled for 6 o'clock this evening.
Tonight, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot released her findings of an investigation into Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. The new report outlines alleged widespread financial mismanagement in the troubled South Suburb.
Our Jermont Terry is live in Dalton, where there was a special town meeting for residents to hear the report's findings, and he joins us now. Jermont.
Joe and Erica, Lightfoot's investigation puts a huge stamp on how money here in Dalton did not have oversight. And when the trustees raised the red flags back in 2021, the investigation reveals Mayor Henyard and her administration intentionally tried to mislead the public. A packed house at the Dalton Field House as residents waited anxiously to see what former Mayor Lori Lightfoot uncovered. Nearly a year ago, Dalton trustees hired Lightfoot to figure out where the money was going.
I'm very disappointed.
Anthony Williams is a longtime resident who wanted to hear it firsthand.
Because I didn't know a lot of these things, and I don't think a lot of people in here knew.
The investigation discovered credit card spending was out of control and went unregulated.
The Board of Trustees, in many instances, was not able to even track or see credit card purchases that were being done over the last few years.
From 2022 to 2023, credit card uses jumped to nearly $780,000. Lightfoot could not determine what many of those purchases were for, or if any were for municipal purposes. Lightfoot says she hit many roadblocks from the administration.
There was a concerted, systematic effort on behalf of Mayor Henyard and others in her administration to hide the true financial condition of the village of Dalton from the trustees and from members of the public.
Much of what's in Lightfoot's final report was mentioned in her preliminary findings from last August.
I actually think it was a waste of taxpayer dollars.
It leaves those running for office and advocating for new change in Dalton to question the overall spending.
The guardians of the finances. Well, that's the whole legislative body, in my opinion. That's not only the mayor, but that's the trustees as well.
Yet current trustees say hiring Lightfoot was necessary to highlight whatever Henyard was hiding.
The minute that we stopped getting information, we knew that something was wrong. And we've gone through multiple years of trying to find a way to ascertain the information. And that's why Lori's report was essentially critical.
Now, you might recall there was about $40,000 in single spending on Amazon in a day that was previously reported by Lightfoot. Her report shows that Henyard claims that she made and purchased items for the village skate rink, an ice rink, unfortunately, that has never opened to the public. And while tonight's investigation was eye-opening, we should note that this is not a criminal probe, and Henyard maintains her innocence in all of this. Reporting live in Dalton, I'm Jermont Terry, CBS News, Chicago.
Jermont, thank you. Lightfoot's report also talked about questionable spending in Thornton Township.
Chaos erupting at a local board meeting outside of Chicago, with the self-proclaimed super mayor Tiffany Henyard at the center. People knocking over furniture and smashing monitors. A shocking scene to many who were inside.
It was scary. It was horrible. That's an embarrassment.
It should have never come to blows, and Tiffany should have never got involved.
In a statement, the Board of Trustees said they are, quote, deeply saddened and disturbed by the events that took place, and, quote, our hearts go out to the residents who continue to witness such turmoil.
This is Mayor Tiffany A. Henyard, the people's mayor.
It's just the latest in a long saga of public scrutiny for Henyard, who is also the mayor of the Chicago suburb of Dalton and Thornton Township supervisor. She's been accused by other village officials of misusing public funds on everything from a lavish one-day community event to billboards of herself. Under her leadership, the Village of Dalton's general day-to-day operating fund was $3.6 million in debt. That's according to an independent investigation commissioned by the village. Henyard denying those claims for months, and even vetoing a measure to investigate her last year, which was eventually overwritten.
I will be victorious when all the dust clears. You see, mark my word.
But one day before the brawl, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who was tapped to lead the investigation into possible mismanagement of Dalton's funds, released her final summary. Some key findings, including $170,000 in travel-related costs, which Lightfoot said produced no business opportunities, $51,000 spent at area restaurants, and more than $218,000 for Amazon purchases made with village credit cards.
I'm happy that the report is out so that the residents finally know some of the truth.
Regarding the brawl or Lightfoot's summary, Henyard did not immediately respond to NBC News' request for comment. She has previously said the financial accusations are political retaliation and has threatened legal action. But tonight, as she makes headlines once again and goes viral for fighting, there are renewed concerns about her leadership.
Okay, Adrian Broadus joins us tonight live from Chicago. So, Adrian, I want to pick up right there where you left off. What's next for this mayor?
Well, Tom, in the township where that fight happened last night, a judge ruled Henyard will not be allowed on the ballot for re-election when it comes to the role of township supervisor. The only chance she has would be a write-in campaign. However, in Dalton, which is about 6 minutes away from the township, she is still seeking re-election as mayor, Tom.
All right, Adrian Broadus here with that new report, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
The NYPD's overtime budget is soaring. It is up 50%. The department says that's because of frequent protests in New York City surrounding the conflict in Gaza. And it also is paying more to patrol the subways with the recent surge of high-profile crimes. The top brass today faced tough questions from members of the city council. Here's Eyewitness News reporter N.J. Burkett.
You get what you pay for. NYPD Commander Edward Caban insisted today that the results speak for themselves.
Shooting incidents are down 16%, and murder has dropped 18.8%, while burglary has been reduced by 12.7%, and overall crime is down 1.6% citywide.
But in a hearing before the City Council, NYPD commanders admitted that costs are soaring. Police deployments in the subway system and details for demonstrations have blown the NYPD's overtime budget by more than $100 million, on course for an increase of 50% over their own projections. Council Speaker Adrian Adams was firm.
The continued spending and significant excess of the budget on overtime only intensifies concerns about the department's management of its budget and workforce.
Now, as you can see in this photo, this is Chief Jeffrey Madre. He was one of the top brass there at the NYPD defending the department's overtime expenditure. So now, after this occurred, the New York Post did an expose on the top earning overtime cops in the city. And one of those cops happened to work for Chief Madre. Check it out.
Lieutenant Quantisha Epps claimed to work more than 1,600 hours of overtime, a staggering total uncovered last month by the New York Post. It allowed Epps to pull in more than $204,000 in overtime pay, on top of her base salary of around $164,000, plus fringe benefits.
Now, Epps tried to retire, but then she was suspended without pay because the brass thought that she was stealing overtime. Then Epps had a new story to tell. She wasn't stealing overtime. She was getting paid for sex.
Lieutenant Epps says starting in June 2023, Madre engaged in efforts to coerce her into performing unwanted sexual favors in exchange for overtime opportunities. According to publicly available payroll data, Epps made a salary last year of over $164,000, but after overtime was factored in, she took home more than $400,000, making her the department's highest paid employee. After refusing his advances in October, she says Madre retaliated by orchestrating an intentionally manipulated monthly overtime report, which resulted in a criminal and internal investigation opened against her.
Now, the chief responded to all this saying, hey, this was all a consensual relationship. She is just lying about him approving the overtime because he doesn't even approve overtime. And he resigned not because of these baseless allegations, it's because he was moving on with his career. Here is the chief explaining.
I just wanted to come out and just stand up for myself and tell everyone that these accusations are not true.
Well, let's get into a little bit and ask about the one that is making the most headlines. Did you force sexual favors from a subordinate? NYPD Lieutenant Quantisha Epps, starting in June 2023, she's a ranking officer. Did you force that in exchange for overtime approval and other perks signed off by you?
Absolutely not.
What happened here?
Me and Lieutenant Epps, we worked together. Starting in early 2022. We were together, working together for about a year and a half, and we were working together. One thing led to another. We had an office fling. And that's all it was an office fling.
Consensual relationship, you're saying?
Absolutely.
How long did that last? consensual relationship with Miss Epps. And that she's essentially lying in this EEOC complaint. What do you think her motivation is to do this now? Would you mind if I answer that? Because, what happened here seems to be that Lieutenant Epps is under investigation internally by the NYPD since October. And the allegations are that not only was she putting in for excessive overtime, but that she was actually putting in for overtime that she had not completed or done, so that she was effectively stealing time. So when she put in her retirement papers, 2 days later, the NYPD suspended her. And they suspended her because of suspicion that she had committed a crime, which is stealing overtime from the NYPD. It was abrupt. Yes. And some would say, well, if you didn't feel you did anything wrong, why did you leave so abruptly?
Well, there was a couple of things going on before when I made the decision. I was already making a decision, and it was really weighing heavy on my mind. I was entering 35 years, almost completing 35 years of city service. I knew that I was going to have to fight, and I didn't want to have the constraints of the police department, being the chief of the department, holding me back from fighting properly for my innocence. When you're in the police department, I can't say certain things, I can't do certain things. I have to have the chief management persona. When you talk about my work speaks for itself. Driving down crime as the chief of the department, all right, what I've done out there in the communities, what I've done in Brooklyn North, all right, I've given so much to the city, so much, and I've never asked anyone for anything in return, all right? Countless people who can never repay me for what I've done for them, all right? And I've never looked for repayment, not even from the lieutenant. So for her to try and spin a story like this is very hurtful, because I've given so much to the people of the city.
During our conversation and during a press conference today with select members of the media, the former chief and his lawyer claim they have evidence backing up their statements the relationship with Lieutenant Epps was consensual, and they say it includes intimate text messages and images. So now you may say, well, this is a he said, she said. Quantisha Epps was banging them for overtime, so that's essentially prostitution, being paid with taxpayer dollars. It's all a mess, right? They both are horrible people. But that's not the end of the story, because some other women who work for the chief also were making monstrous amounts of overtime, like Detective Ingrid Sanders.
According to departmental records, Lieutenant Quantisha Epps, Madry's personnel officer, worked more than 1,600 hours in the fiscal year of 2024, bumping her salary to $406,000. It also shows Detective Ingrid Sanders, Madry's driver, with more than 1,400 hours of overtime, bumping her salary to $352,000. Madry's second in command, Deputy Chief Paul Saracino, who oversaw overtime approval, was modified Wednesday evening. And Monday, Commissioner Jessica Tisch removed 14 officials from the Internal Affairs Bureau after the chief also abruptly resigned in the overtime abuse scandal.
Now, Quantisha Epps is making $400,000 a year. Ingrid is making $350,000 a year. Are there any other female officers working for the chief making monstrous amounts of overtime? Well, yes. Yes, there was. Here's Ada Reyes. She made $53,000 in overtime, New York Post reports. Now, overtime isn't something new in law enforcement. On average, NYPD officers can make between 10 to 20% of their salary in overtime. But now, if you compare that to the three women who are working for the chief, for instance, Quantisha Epps, her base salary is $164,000. So if you factor in overtime, she made 124% of her base salary in overtime. That's a lot more than the 10 to 20% on average. Ingrid Sanders, she made 84% of her estimated base salary in overtime. And Detective Reyes made 57% of her base salary in overtime. So this seemed to be a real problem. So with all these women being paid these huge amounts of overtime and all these questions about sex for public funds, the FBI and Internal Affairs said, hey, we gotta really look to see what's going on here, because we have hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars going to what looks to be a sex for pay scandal.
Hey, Teresa, so what we know right now is that federal agents and the NYPD's Internal Affairs Bureau raided Jeffrey Madry's home, which is right behind me, this morning. Now, NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch in a statement said other locations were searched as well, but didn't give specifics. Now, take a look at this video here. This is video of investigators bringing out boxes and bins of papers. Madry is being investigated over allegations that he demanded sex from a subordinate in exchange for overtime pay. A day before these bombshell allegations were made, Madry put in his retirement papers, leaving his position as chief of department. The new chief of department, John Schell, was sworn in on New Year's Eve, but Commissioner Tisch also making clear this morning that Madry has been suspended from the department as well. Any NYPD officer who retires technically stays on the books for 30 days and can be suspended if it's determined he's violated department rules or committed a criminal act. Madry has denied the accusations that he forced this lieutenant to have sex with him, claiming that the relationship was consensual. We have reached out to Madry's lawyers, but haven't heard back yet. Now, on Tuesday, Mayor Adams also said that Commissioner Tisch is doing a review of the department and looking specifically at how overtime hours are logged.
So now, what do you think? At first, I thought the chief and Quantisha Epps were bad people, but now it seems like the chief was doing this with a whole bunch of other people. Now, the allegations are specifically with Epps, not these other two officers who are not saying that they were harassed sexually. But my God, $350,000 in overtime? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And it all happens to go to women who are on the police force who happens to work under this guy. None of this makes sense. And for those of you who watch the channel all the time, this is exactly what's going on in Dalton. This is exactly what Tiffany Henyard was doing with the police department in Dalton. Remember?
The officers are paid every 2 weeks, which without overtime is 80 hours. But when they're put on Henyard's detail, that 80 hours balloons to well over 100 hours, sometimes 200 hours. And in the case of Officer Terry Young last May, 303 hours worked over a 2-week period. That resulted in a single paycheck of more than $13,000.
How does a person put in a 2-week pay period, 303 hours? That's impossible. That's impossible.
336
Does he never go to sleep?
In fact, there are 336 hours total in 2 weeks, meaning Young was not being paid for only 33 hours over that period. Other officers on the security detail are also racking up overtime paychecks in the multiple thousands of dollars.
So as you see, for police officers, it seems like the easiest way for them to steal money from the public is just faking overtime. Henyard did it. I'm surprised the FBI hasn't raided Henyard and the police officers there for essentially doing the same thing that's happening in New York City with overtime. Because obviously that guy's not working every single hour of every single day for $13,000 in 1 week for Henyard. And the same with these other officers, right? She's admitted that, hey, she wasn't doing that work. She was banging the chief and getting $200,000 or $300,000 in overtime. But let me know what you feel. Because at first I was like, hey, Quantisha Epps maybe has some culpability here, which I still think she does because she knows she was getting paid to bang the chief. This is essentially prostitution. But the chief, I think, is the worst criminal of them all if these things are true. Because his driver's making all this money, these other detectives making all this money, they all happen to be females. It all smells bad. So again, all people mentioned from Dalton to New York City are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And my opinion is they're all scum and they all need justice to be done. But
what exactly did they say to each other? The world wants to know what political rivals Donald Trump and Barack Obama were chatting about at Jimmy Carter's funeral. They sure looked friendly. They chuckled like old buddies. Trump even made Obama laugh. So, what did they say? We enlisted the services of a court-certified forensic lip reader to find out. According to lip reader Jeremy Freeman, Obama says to Trump, "I can't talk. We have to find a quiet place. This is a matter of importance, and we need to do this outside so that we can deal with it, certainly today. At one point, Trump says, I've pulled out of that. It's the conditions. Can you imagine that? It's unclear what Trump is referring to. The most awkward moment at the funeral may have come when former VP Mike Pence and Trump came face-to-face for the first time in 4 years. Pence refused to endorse Trump for president following their falling out from the January 6, 2021 riots. Trump and Pence looked civil with each other. Pence says, good to see you, and shakes hands. Then he greets Melania with a good to see you. And check out Pence's wife, Karen. She does not interact with the Trumps and stares straight ahead.
Great man. By
the way, how about Trump and Biden having a full-on hang fest?
Obama, yeah.
What did I say?
How wild was that?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Obama. The black guy.
How wild was that to watch, though? It is a little disappointing, though, because both those guys benefit so much on every American on both those sides hating each other.
I know.
And then you see them together and they're like, haha, we get along.
You know what it's like?
It's like
just
like
Clinton
and Trump at the old parties. They're like, they're all just friends. They eat at the same dining hall.
Yeah, they're all pieces of shit.
Well,
you know what it's like? It's like when guys fight and then the fight's over and they talk so much shit about each other before the fight and they hug it out and they're all emotional. That's what it's like. It's like,
except they're not fighting. They're talking about,
we're professional here.
This is like, the other guy's like, this is Hitler and I need to have a revolution to fight him.
And then hi,
and then you get done and you go, hey, man, you see this?
Yeah.
It's so fake.
On Kamala.
He was saying that neo-Nazis and white nationalists were very fine people. Remember that?
Yeah. And then he's like, I had to say it. I get it. You had to say it?
Yeah.
They just sit down and they work it out.
But meanwhile, the rest of us, your neighbor has a fucking science is real flag.
Yeah.
Love is love,
Black Lives Matter.
Because these guys, that's what they're putting out there.
Yeah, it's causing division.
And you have
joy division. Well, it just makes you realize this is the reason why cults exist, because it's really easy to shift someone's opinion about things. It's really easy. Most people are really weak.
Yeah. And they're also all looking at the fringes of each side.
Yeah.
So like the shit they're complaining about, like 90% of the people on that side they're like, yeah, we agree with you.
Yeah, 90%. Yeah, it's nuts. It's just weird that it works so well. It really does work, and people make it their whole personality, their whole identity, and then if you push back, they hate you.
He's Hitler, and I'll sit next to him at Carter's funeral.
And laugh, and they joke around together. Meanwhile, Biden's asleep. You see him fall asleep? Fell asleep. Did he? Fully fell asleep.
There was a picture of like 3 or 4 of them
snoozing. But my favorite part was when Kamala Harris shows up and she fucking stink eyes both of them. Yeah. She stink eyes Trump and Obama and then sits down and doesn't say hi or shake their hands.
Nice.
And then looks over and sees that Biden or that Obama and Trump are talking to each other and she goes like this. She's like, yeah. Rolls her eyes and she's with her husband and her husband's name.
That's like when Shane was talking to Chappelle or Louis and people were like, fuck, I gotta be nice to you now.
Bill Clinton was there too. He was checking out Kamala. He's like, hey, nice rock suit. You are half black.
I'm gonna go out with a bang.
Watch this. Look at her face. Look how angry she is, dude. Look how angry she is. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's like look at Obama and Trump no one looks at each other.
You sit next to him.
Yeah, that's what she said. She guided him over. He has to sit wherever the fuck she tells him to. He's the white Chris Brown. And look, they're looking at each other. Trump is like, maybe we'll shake hands. Look at Trump. He's just holding it.
George
Bush's wife. I want to be on what she's on right now. Look at George Bush's wife. She's so happy. Right now she's seeing elves, but she knows she's on Jules. She's got the Handmaid's Tale outfit on Melania. Melania's like, I can't fucking believe I have to be First Lady once again.
What's going on, guys? Thank those of you who have chosen to sign up and join me as paid patron members here on patreon.com. I am going to try, now that my schedule isn't as busy, to produce more content here on patreon.com. Anyway, I'm going to have to find a alternative to ScrewTube if I'm making a comeback anyway, because it's only a matter of time before they start attacking my channel again, which isn't monetized. So, coming off the backdrop of one of my last videos about the elements surrounding the New Orleans attack, I started honing in on one thing very specifically that I spoke about during that whole event regarding the lack of credibility of these people that we call experts, authorities, and government officials. How you had a leading FBI agent saying all kinds of random, untrue shit, just spitting out information, misinformation, you know, like a fucking like a fucking coffee machine just spitting out water without mixing it with the coffee grains. And you had a New Orleans police chief that looks like she's 60 going on 70, but it's actually only in her early 50s, that's a completely incompetent gas trap that's just running off at the mouth, completely useless. This broad has been fired from multiple agencies. You know, she's worked for damn near half a dozen different law enforcement agencies. She hit 2 people shortly after coming to New Orleans to become their police chief. She, you know, couldn't answer questions as to why Bourbon Street wasn't properly blocked off for New Year's celebrations. And these were the same people, you know, feeding all this misinformation that had this, you know, security plan that, you know, what they call a terrorist defeated. They want to turn around and tell you about how safe you are and continue to come to New Orleans. We got everything covered. When the truth of the matter is, the only reason New Orleans is safe from what they call terrorism to the extent that it is because up until this year, nobody has really tried to attack New Orleans, other than the Pookie savages, of course, that are always running roughshod around there and throughout the United States, and some of their white equivalents. But that conversation that I had with you guys really started to get me thinking about some of the other current situations that have been developing and unfolding both now and over the course of the last few months when it comes to these, you know, many of just completely irrelevant and incompetent and dishonest assholes that a lot of these dumb motherfuckers, including, unfortunately, a lot of y'all, go out and cast a ballot for, or entrust people that you casted a ballot for to properly appoint to these positions of power over you. And I listen to these stories, and some of them I've been kind of following on and off, you know, along with everything else that's been going on in my life, because none of it really directly affects me, but I've been kind of following some of it on and off, and I just can't help but think to myself, why do human beings have this need for this hierarchy system? I mean, you see it everywhere, in entertainment, in politics. Now, to some extent, the military, it's kind of understood that there needs to be a chain of command when you're talking about, you know, battles and military strategies and counteroffensives. But, you know, politically, you know, in entertainment, even in religion, why do people have this need to be led? Because, see, the problem is, and it's not just a problem in our lifetime, but is a problem that has gone on for centuries, since even before ancient Rome. that a lot of these so-called leaders are leading people astray and have led people astray. And that's just for the ones that are pretending to give two shits about you. See, and a lot of people don't understand this. When you go to what they call a ballot box on election day, you're voting for someone who has to be what they call politically correct, meaning they have to pretend to give a damn about you and the other people within their district, state, locality, what have you, that they, claim to be representing. Okay. They can't come out like a dictator or some warlord in some shit ass third world country and just start imposing unfair, rules and harsh punishments on people. Because at least for now, okay, we have a so-called civilized society that is supposed to have a bunch of safeguards against that. But make no mistake, and I've warned people about this over the years, when civility breaks down, most likely because of some global or domestic calamity, like another Great Depression or another World War, and resources become scarce, a lot of the feral behavior that we see on the streets and a lot of the draconian type of authoritarianism that we see in a lot of what Trump described as shithole countries is going to find itself rising to the top. And when I say the top, I mean the top brass. These people who hold these positions that you vote into office, if they don't take power by force, they're going to openly abuse their power. We got some remnants of this during the COVID-19 scamdemic, better known as the COVID-19 pandemic. You had an entire federal government under the Biden administration threatening people's livelihoods if they didn't get a needle put in their fucking arm for some unexplained mystery potion that they claimed was a vaccine to a newly arrived virus that they claimed was a pandemic, even though there were mucho numero amounts of evidence that this vaccine didn't even fucking work. There were people getting vaccinated, including some in my own family, that still wound up catching what they call COVID-19. There were people like Colin Powell that were fully vaccinated and still got sick and died from COVID-19. And the thing about vaccinations is, it's not like swallowing a pill. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. A vaccine is different in taking a medication in most medical treatments, in that it's supposed to protect your body by reprogramming it to fight certain diseases for life. And it became perfectly obvious to me that essentially what we saw during the scamdemic was perhaps not only the largest scam, but the largest social experiment in human history that was ever devised and carried out. It also occurred to me that while these people in these undeserved positions of power over us, if they had the power to hold us down and force those needles into our arm, to throw us in jail or concentration camps, if we didn't do exactly what they said, they would have done just that. The only reason that they didn't, because remember, they tried a lot of things. They were trying so hard to control and manipulate and inject the masses with this crap that they dared to call a vaccine, that some of the Bible thumpers were anti-vaccine, were questioning if we were in the last days, where their Christian Holy Bible describes a time where something is going to come along called the mark of the beast. And of course, you had Bible thumpers who wanted to believe the corrupt powers that be, that were trying to force this sham down everyone's throat, that were denying that we were in the days of the mark of the beast. But these motherfuckers were literally saying that you couldn't walk into a restaurant and order food in certain cities like New York if you didn't have a fucking vac card. Completely violating HIPAA laws, completely violating your right to assemble, your rights to freedom of speech, telling you you couldn't talk against COVID-19, telling you that if you didn't get vaccinated, you could lose your job. And they did everything but physically threaten people. And the only reason they didn't physically threaten people is because, number one, it would have upended their true intentions. And number two, and this is the bigger one, they simply didn't have the numbers to force anyone to do anything. It's just like I said, if there was a nationwide tax strike where even 1 million, I said 10 million the first time, didn't I? Screw that. If even 1 million human beings, 1 million Americans said, you know what? Fuck the IRS. Fuck the U.S. government. We ain't paying them shit. The only tax you're going to get is when we buy something or directly out of our paycheck, motherfucker. We ain't doing no goddamn taxes. Come get us. If even 1 million people went on tax strike, the government would not have the handcuffs. They wouldn't have the law enforcement. Even if they deputized everybody in the federal government and the military, they would not have the manpower to track down and arrest everyone who didn't pay their taxes. They wouldn't have the jail cells. They wouldn't have the judges nor the prosecutors to see and try all of those cases. They couldn't get enough jurors in enough time to have a panel of 12 for every case. And the point that I was making was not suggesting that there should be a tax strike, but simply pointing out the fact that these people get their power. They derive their power from us, the many. It has always been that way. Unfortunately, too many times throughout history, throughout human history, human beings who are part of that many make the grave mistake of giving the few too much authority and power and unsupervised officiality over themselves. Simply because a motherfucker stood up somewhere and gave a fucking speech. I don't know, again, where this idea came from in mankind. You know, I understand that most human beings are designed to be social creatures. There are those of us who have a lone wolf type of mentality, such as myself, where I don't feel now, nor have I ever felt, like I need to be led or controlled by anyone, anytime, anywhere, for any reason. Okay? But most people aren't like that. Most people are like the birds that you see standing on the power line, socializing with each other. Most human beings have this innate, and to me, this awkward need to be around each other, even around others that they don't agree or get along with. I recall saying this in one of my videos many years ago, that human beings are perhaps the most intriguing and yet terrible species that has ever befallen this universe. They can't stand to be away from each other, but they can't manage to get along when they're with each other. So weird. You have motherfuckers that will go through 2 or 3 different divorces, like the New Orleans attacker, not figuring out in the first time that they married that they're not cut out for fucking marriage. And so it is because, I believe, my philosophy is that it's because of this fear, this weakness, this human weakness, this human flaw of feeling like you can't be alone, or you can't operate, or you can't function by yourself as an intelligent and complex animal on this earth, that leads to this group majority thought and rule that human beings have in so many places, that we need a leader. We need a government. It has been proven throughout time that there have been civilizations of human beings, including during the times of, if you look out, you know, from the 15th century up until the 18th century, when white colonialists came to the Americas and pushed them out, many tribes of Native Americans did not have a government type system like what we have. Some of them had systems where they installed chieftains, but some of them didn't. And they got along together and managed just fine. Okay? They would send out hunter-gatherers and stuff like that, but they did not have this governmentary system. And a lot of that, you know, you see this the same thing in, you know, if you look at, for example, the history of the Aborigines, even a lot of ancient African tribes, okay, a lot of Incan tribes in what we now call South America. They did not have these systems that oftentimes become corrupt because of the very easy access of limitless, unsupervised power that's given to individuals who, in many cases, even if they start out honest and honestly wanting to do the right thing, animal nature and human nature takes over, because they see all of the opportunity to gain more for themselves and their family and their cronies. So greed and selfishness sets in. You didn't have this to the extent that you did have it in a lot of non-European tribes a few centuries ago. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that before the Europeans introduced the entire world over a course of time to what we now call modern living, where we moved more away from nature and agriculture in an agricultural type system, meaning living off the land, and more towards an industrial type of system. Okay? It became easier and easier for these opportunistic asswipes that we call politicians or so-called leaders to take charge and mess things up. Okay? This is not just true in the political system. It's true in the religious system. Remember, the Catholic Church fought an entire war against disbelievers. Okay? Not just against Muslims, but against disbelievers. Remember, in medieval times, they were torturing, jailing, and killing so-called scientists that were starting to challenge religious fallacy. Not because it was a threat to the throne of God, as they want you to believe, but because it was a threat to their power. Religion is now and has always been a form of political corruption. Okay? Which is why they have a hierarchy system, that is very similar to what you see in a lot of political systems that form what people call local, state, and federal government. You see this in the black community. You see this in the white community. Okay? People who are disillusioned to believe, and a lot more people are waking up to this shit, but people who are disillusioned to believe that these religious clerics, and it doesn't matter the religion, okay? Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Catholicism, even Buddhism. People who are foolish enough to believe that these people are just spreading the gospel of their ideology around the world trying to save souls are very, very fooled and misinformed. This is a business, and it's a con that's being run and has been being run for centuries, just like politics. I never did, as I've gotten older, and I've mentioned this, how I never once in my life voted, and I likely never will. I never did understand this mentality that many people, including those of you who listen to me, have, that are naive enough to believe that you're going to go and cast a vote for a single individual. And this single individual that you don't know, there's a good chance you've never met, and if you did meet him, it was a quick, shake your hand and move on to the next 100 or 1,000 people standing beside you, is going to somehow get in office and resolve all of your problems in life, or they're going to somehow make your life better. In 99% of cases, the people you vote for don't do a goddamn fucking thing that positively benefits you. In fact, in most cases, and I dare someone to challenge me on this, in most cases, the only positive thing that most of these asswipes, whether they be Republican or Democrat, whether they be from the Labor Party or the Likud Party, if you're talking about, some more Europeanized type political systems, the only positive energy that they give to benefit you is that little warm feeling of pride, of false pride, that strokes your little ego when you get done punching a hole in that ticket or however they cast ballots now, and you walk out of that voting booth where you feel like you've done your part. You feel proud as an American because you fucking poked a hole in a sheet of fucking paper underneath a fucking name for some asshole that you don't know. You, in the back of your mind, don't really think that person is going to do shit for you. You, in the back of your mind, don't really believe that this person is going to make the world or your community a better place. What you feel in most cases, if you are honest with yourself and really dig down deep, is a feeling of pride and ego stroking because you feel like you effectively rooted for a team that you feel a part of because you're afraid to go at it alone and have your own independent way of thought. 90% of people who vote for random assholes couldn't tell you 5 fucking things outside of what the news media tells them about the politician that they're voting for. They couldn't tell you about their history. They couldn't tell you about where the person grew up. They couldn't even tell you about the person's policies. Some of these motherfuckers get elected without, forwarding in public any real notable policy at all. Just, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, vote for me. These motherfuckers will tell you anything. And what a lot of dummies don't understand is that just like the religious fallacy, the religious system, politics and government is a business, okay? It's the world's largest company. And from my perspective, it's the greatest modern day scam besides insurance. Year after year, you give these fucking dickheads from the White House on down your votes and your tax dollars. And they're spending your money on bullshit. And keep in mind, this is just shit that under the laws of the powers that be is legal, even though it shouldn't be. Okay? Like sending billions of dollars to the Ukraine to fight somebody else's fucking war. Or to Israel, a country that produces next to nothing that the world uses. Nothing. Yet billions of your dollars are going to these Zionist shitheads that are leveling fucking Gaza. Every single goddamn year. They spend your money on redecorating government buildings. Yet if you look in your local area, the same motherfuckers that spend all this money on shit that nobody needs without your approval, mind you, are the same assholes who can't fix the potholes in the streets. They can't solve a majority of the crime, including the violent crime. They can't improve conditions in public schools. They can't put significant pressure on these corporations to treat workers like yourself fair and give fair and safe working conditions. They won't even intervene. In fact, these very same idiots that you hire and put in these political positions, they won't even intervene in a labor dispute between a company and workers unless the workers go on strike and become a threat to the status quo. So long as you're being abused and misused and disrespected, they don't give a fuck. So long as you continue to be an obedient little worker ant, give them your money, work your fucking ass off, get treated like shit, get paid like shit, and allow them to keep lying to you and you keep giving them your fucking votes, they don't give two shits past a fuck. What happens to you? You call a complaint to one of these appointed government agencies against your employer about a violation. Those fat, lazy fucks that work in those offices like the Department of Labor or the Department of Transportation, they will find any way and every way to get out of launching a serious investigation. And in most cases won't launch a serious investigation unless it's some type of a fucking highlight reel that they think is going to get them a raise or a promotion or otherwise advance their fucking careers. And I know because I file complaints myself. Because, hey, they're government employees. They get paid either way. Why do people keep feeding into this scam of government and politics? I have said, and I have been saying for the last 3 or 4 years, that what we call the government needs to now and should have long ago been replaced with a referendum-based system over society. Instead of voting for so-called politicians, we need to vote for policies. And anybody can introduce a policy in their local area. You go from one level to the next. Locally, instead of hiring a fucking mayor and a board of trustees, okay, you, the people, get together, okay, and you get presented with the fiscal budget, okay, in writing or an email, okay. You look over it, and those, you know, of course, not everybody in the community is going to participate, but you don't need them to. If they don't, then they can't complain. But everybody should have a fair and square ability to participate in taking care of the business of organizing and managing a community. Okay? From the funding to the laws. Okay? From the local, state, all the way up to the federal level. You as a people govern yourselves. Then you don't have to worry about all this politically corrupt bullshit. Like this bitch in Dalton that I'm getting tired of hearing about, Tiffany Henyard, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a trip in Las Vegas with funds from a small suburban village out of Chicago, paying her police officers that she's made personal bodyguards tens of thousands of dollars a week in overtime. Throwing balls and cookouts and events when the fucking town hasn't even paid its regular bills. Putting up billboards that haven't even been paid for. The shit is out on fucking lease. You don't have to worry about some fat pig police chief in New York City using your tax dollars in a place that's already high as living fuck to live because of property and other taxes. misusing taxpayer money that's intended to fund the police force to keep New York City safe, even though New York is going back to a place that it used to be back in the 70s and the 80s of complete violence and unassurity. Misusing those funds to solicit prostitution from female cops that shouldn't even be fucking cops because they're fucking whores. To the tune where one of these bitches is making more fucking money than the goddamn police commissioner of the most populated city in the United States of America. This bitch is making damn near $500,000 sucking the cock of the fucking chief of departments. You wouldn't have a bitch that already showed how fucking stupid she was, filing frivolous criminal charges against police officers that were just doing their fucking job 10 years ago, locking up a fucking criminal and a drug dealer in Freddie Gray, knowing good and goddamn well those charges weren't going to stick and that they were going to get thrown out, refusing assistance from the U.S. Justice Department to help her with the fucking case, but just doing anything to appease the fucking savage, single mother-raised nigger apes that lived there in Baltimore because they were throwing a fucking fit because the media, including CNN, chose to make a bigger deal out of Freddie Gray's death than what it was. Misusing the so-called COVID-19 relief fund, lying on applications that she was unemployed and in financial distress so she could illegally withdraw out of a retirement fund $90,000 so that she could buy a fucking boat and a couple of summer homes in fucking Florida in this Marilyn Mosby bitch. A bitch that was entrusted to protect her constituents by upholding the law, by prosecuting criminals in Baltimore, is now breaking the law and betraying the trust of the people by using her authority, and she's already getting paid too much, to benefit herself, showing that she not there now, nor has she ever gave two shits past the fuck about the people of Baltimore, any more than that corrupt female mayor that was around that they had, that I think also got in trouble for political corruption back when that whole Freddie Gray thing was going on. And then this same fucking bitch gets a slap on the wrist by likely some white liberal federal judge talking about her fucking kids. And that's the reason why she didn't put her dumb ass in prison. When the truth of the matter is, if a man had done that shit, they would have put him under the jail. Marilyn Mosby faced 40 years and only got 100 hours of community service and a year of home confinement. Because one hand washes the other. These people don't give a fuck about you. And you wouldn't have to worry about any of this shit if you would take steps like not voting to discourage this foolishness from happening by making it clear that you want a complete overhaul and change of the system from a government-based system of ass wipes that clearly don't give a damn about your ass and are only looking out for themselves and their cronies, to a referendum-based system where people govern themselves. They choose what's best for the community by not voting for leaders and politicians, but voting for policies, voting for laws, and voting to approve budgets themselves. Because it is only the people of a community, whether you're talking about a small community or an entire state, that know what is going on the ground to the point where they understand what is necessary in law and policy to adapt to their environment, to make it safe and thriving for themselves and their children and their future. Why are people so afraid of that? Where did this government shit come from in the first place? It is an absolute fucking scam. Created by those who want to sit up on their ass and use these religious and political fallacies to turn you against one another to their benefit through manipulation, coercion, and if need be, downright control. And when these motherfuckers abuse their power, or when they screw up and they fail to fulfill their job title and description, then they want to block the public completely out, like Tiffany Henyard, like that fucking Grandma Clampett from the Beverly Hills looking bitch from New Orleans that's the chief in New Orleans. Talking about she has no comment, doesn't want to answer questions as to why the ballots weren't fucking up. Where's all that tax money that people are paying in New Orleans? These people can't do a damn thing for you. You stroke your little fucking ego and your little fucking pride voting Democrat or voting Republican because it makes you feel good. Because you feel like you're part of a team. But in reality, these motherfuckers betray and lie to you and fail you every chance they fucking get. And you're stupid enough to keep coming back for more. Some of the same motherfuckers, in fact, most of the motherfuckers that have been bitching about Tiffany Henyard for the last 3 fucking years are the same dumbasses that casted a ballot to elect the bitch, the mayor of Dalton, which is literally walking distance from where I was born and raised. They were some of the very motherfuckers that were standing there on her inauguration day talking about black girl magic and, you know, we got a black woman mayor and, you know, she was chosen by God and all this other bullshit. Now, 3 years later, they see her true colors when the truth of the matter is this mugshot having bitch is no different than any other hood rat bitch from the south side of Chicago. You think a fucking bitch that went to jail for theft is to be trusted with public funds in a small town, unsupervised and unchecked, then you're dumber than what I give you credit for. But this is what we have across the board. From New York to New Orleans to suburban Chicago, everywhere you look. People are asking what the fuck Donald Trump and Barack Obama were talking about at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Does it matter? Does it matter? They were probably laughing at how they run games on you idiots. People conveniently forget, you know, these Trump nut huggers, these fucking rednecks waving these fucking Trump flags bigger than the American flag up over their fucking farm properties. They conveniently forget that Donald Trump was once a Democrat. He was once friends of the Clintons who donated to the Clinton Foundation. Okay? Trump has befriended and shaken hands with and done other things with people on both sides of the aisle. Okay? Where people got their idea that Donald Trump is somehow, you know, the friend of this, this white supremacist movement that wants to make America white again. I don't know where they got that. This man is an opportunist. Where you get the idea that a man that was born a billionaire somehow has your best interest at heart even if he means what he say, it just shows you how stupid and how fucking gullible people are. Donald Trump, like Joe Biden and Obama, will never, ever be able to fully grasp and understand the gravity of what the average, everyday, working or poor or homeless American goes through. Because in many cases, they never experienced that type of hardship, that type of frustration, especially not Donald Trump. Somebody was born with a golden spoon up his ass. Okay? Even if you like this man's policies, you honestly have to ask yourself, can he really deliver on everything he claims? Claimed he was going to build a wall. Didn't even get half that shit built. Can he really stop the flood of immigration? Is that really the biggest issues with groceries being almost 50% higher than they were just 2 fucking years ago? You can barely buy food now. What are people really thinking this man is going to get in there and do? On either side of the aisle, whether you like him or you hate him. I take Obama and Donald Trump's conversation in close quarters, laughing and yucking it up with each other. I don't know what they were talking about, and they may not like each other. But I take their perceived friendship at Carter's funeral to represent and symbolize what I've been trying to tell you fools for years. What Michael Jackson told you. Hell, as fucked up as that motherfucker was, he told y'all 20, 30 years ago, they don't really care about us in a song. And he was right. They don't. You think these people go to bed hating each other? Ready to come to blows with each other? No, that's what they want you to think. Now, every once in a while, it backfires on them when somebody goes to try to put a bullet in one of their heads or firebombs, one of their political offices. But by and large, they want you to turn against one another. They don't give a shit about you. I knew Obama didn't give 2 shits past the fuck about black people when he attended all those tragic events during his presidency, including, the highlighted cases of the shooting at Sandy Hook and the shooting at that church in South Carolina. But he refused to attend the funeral of an honor student from his own political city where he got his political start as a political organizer in Chicago, named Hadia Pendleton, that was shot and killed by a stray bullet in January 2013, just days after performing at his second inauguration in a parade. Soon as she went home, she was dead. He didn't attend her funeral. But all the highlighted cases that the media put out there, when he saw that highlight reel, he was right there, giving that fake fucking sermon in that fucking church in South Carolina. I almost rolled my eyes back so far in my fucking head, I couldn't get them back straight side. These people are a bunch of fucking phonies. Okay? They don't hate each other. They want you to be divided amongst each other because that gives them more power. Just like the reason why they don't really come down hard on the drug trade. The so-called war on drugs, everybody knows it's a fucking joke. Because if they really came down on those cartels and used the full might, including the military might of the United States, a lot of them would be out of a fucking job. If things are too normal and too calm, and too many people are thinking for themselves, like weren't thinking during the COVID scamdemic, if there's not enough sheep, there's no need for a shepherd. And if there's no need for a shepherd, if there's no need and there's no call for leadership, these people that make their living off of the rest of us, believing that there is a need for one, are out of a job. Then they got to get their raggedy asses out there, take off that fucking suit and tie, and go and get a real fucking job like the rest of us. It's nothing but a fucking scam. Fuck government. Thank you so much for listening. Think about and internalize what I said. Hopefully it will spark an idea that long after we're dead, because it ain't going to happen in our lifetime, will bring about a change in the upcoming generations. Talk to you later, guys.